Wow, this next guest is going to blow your socks off because I know he did mine. I recently had the pleasure of sitting in the chair, watching Rich on stage share his story and his motivation, his enthusiasm, his passion for life. And I think that's ultimately the driving force behind what motivates us behind the elevated life. This is our life's passion. This is our life's mission. And when you come across another soul that is on journey with they're in alignment with their soul mission, you feel it, you taste it, you smell it, and Rich just oozes that enthusiasm. And so we know that the wisdom that comes up in today's organic conversation is going to just be absolutely breathtaking and magical for all of us. So Rich, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for sharing all your motivation and enthusiasm.
Thank y'all for having me. I'm excited. Even just right now, I'm even feeling the electricity that's coming into this episode. So brace yourself, lock in. Let's get after it.
I know I've got like spirit bumps all over. I'm like, like it's called the elevated life for a reason. So buckle up because we're about to, we call it up and on. We're just up and on, like nothing's going to slow our vibration down. We are just elevating all the way. So with that in mind, Rich, can you take us on that journey of your elevation of where did you start? How did you get into emceeing, DJing, motivational speaking? Because you don't motivational speak without trauma or something shitty that happens. So can you take us on that journey?
Yeah. And let's be honest, we've all got our stuff and some of us just turn it into the positive energy. So that's what I help people do as a motivational speaker is understand how they can leverage their pain, their trauma, their lessons in life, and how they can make the best out of it. Because we all can sit around and mope about the things that have happened to us and worry about what's happened to us. And that's what happened for us. So that's what I help audiences and organizations feel and think when I talk with them. Now, the origin of the journeys are a little different. So the DJing part of it, which is truly one of my passions, I'm a music freak. That started when I was 15, when I was a student council treasurer, and we were losing money because we kept booking these old 40-year-old DJs who were just terrible and nobody was showing up. So my best friends and I volunteered to DJ a dance, and all of a sudden there were 300 plus kids coming to these parties. And it was awesome. I got addicted to that. And that was just a fun journey that led me down the path of DJing at places like Winter Music Conference, opening for the late great Avicii, Kelly Rowland, some really big names in the industry. So that was a 25-year journey that has been phenomenal. Now I get to leverage that a little bit into my keynote speaking as well, because I've got a keynote that talks about my DJ journey and how it ties to emotional intelligence. And then I also have the MC background, which is basically me just kind of holding my own passion at bay until the host of The Price is Right job comes back open again, because that is my dream job 100%.
I freaking love that.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? So we did get to hear you speak. The second, and Britt wasn't sitting next to me, which is weird because we're normally always like sitting next to each other, commenting in between things. You got done. I stood up and walked to Britt and said, "We need him on our podcast immediately." I mean, it was one of those just like, you have something that I feel like if other people were to build that skill, they would succeed in life so much faster. And so many people don't talk about it. And to me, that is social charisma. Whenever,
I love that.
If you can walk into a room and get people to like you, get people to notice you, get people to listen to what you're saying, you suddenly have a power, not over the people, but with the people, because whenever you really work with the person, you're motivating them to do things they want to do. I'm not trying to motivate you to do things that I think you should do, but it's more like, oh, that's what you want to do. Let's go get it. And your charisma, I was just like, damn, he's got it. I can't even imagine what this guy would look like on a dating scene. I mean, it was just, you had the room. They loved everything that you were doing. How does a person start developing that kind, especially you get the people who are introverts, especially you get the people who lack confidence? I mean, public speaking is one of the biggest phobias that exists. Some people can do anything, but you get them on stage and they are just a nobody. So how do you start developing that kind of social charisma that you just, you exuded?
Yeah. So one, I appreciate the compliment. And if I had your beautiful hair, I would be flipping it in embarrassment. And so one, I think it has to do first with the ability to engage people and be of that servant mentality. I mean, I think so many times now, especially in today's age, we're so worried about our own lane. We've got our blinders on. We're worried about our thing and our profile and our brand. And when we stop and put everybody else first and engage with other people and try to meet them where they're at, that charisma naturally comes because people love feeling cared about. They love feeling like you're there for them. And I think that's where a lot of, frankly, speakers get it wrong. People that do want to get into speaking, because they're up there for their own selves. They're up there for their ego. They're up there for the attention. And that's the wrong way to go about it. And so I think, one, I've always been a couple different things. One, a highly sensitive person, which I didn't realize there was a title for that until about 2 years ago, but also a high empath. I'm somebody who always is thinking about other people, checking in with other people. I genuinely care about other people. And if you could even come with a fiber of that, that changes the game as far as how you engage with people, how you are as a public speaker or an entertainer or a personality on social media. If you care about others, that people are naturally drawn to you, because a lot of times too, is even though we're in our own lanes, we want to feel cared for. We don't feel that on the whole nowadays. And that's why I love talking with y'all. And when we find people that are like-minded and like-spirited, we should all connect and share more of that. But two, I think when it comes to public speaking, and I coach people all the time on this, it comes down to the fact that you're up there telling a story from your perspective with your experience, and nobody else has that. So when I talk with people that want to become public speakers, or they're so nervous, like, oh, I'm going to be judged and people are going to think this, I'm like, who gives a damn? You're up there sharing your story. There is an insight that you share with those individuals. And the great point that you made was, you're not up there motivating somebody to do something they don't want to do. They understand that they should do it. They just need to feel empowered and feel almost given the opportunity to change. And they see you as the example on how that could happen.
Gosh, it reminds me of the time where I was really wanting to step out from behind the chair, and I kept feeling like I have a message to share. I want to empower women and not just make them look pretty on the outside. I want to make them feel good on the inside. And I manifested this opportunity, a phone call from Good Morning Texas. Would you like to come on and do this thing? And I started getting so nervous. I started freaking out, like, oh, I don't know, should I do this? Right. And so I just put a little prayer up, and I was like, I don't know if I'm meant to do this. Like, please, like, show me a clear sign that like I'm meant to like help someone. Like that this is going to help. This was a topic that was a little questionable. It was like at home hair color for people. And I was like, as a professional stylist, I don't know if I like vibe on that. Like that's against my policy, but I slept on it. And I asked, like, if I'm being given this opportunity, I'm supposed to serve and be that person. So how can I serve, but also like speak to it where it's not going against what's authentically true for me, but also serving. So I went to sleep with that little prayer, like, please, like, help me to decide if this is in alignment. And when I woke up the next morning, I heard this very clear message. Not everyone's going to sit in your salon chair, Britt. There are people that are going to color their hair at home every 3 weeks because they just can't afford it. And they're doing it anyway, no matter what you say or what you do. So get up there and serve those people. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did the segment. It was the second, they invited me back. It was the second time on. And when I left that segment, Chris and I were on our way home, and we decided to stop at a Costco that was in a different city. Cause the different Costcos have like better things.
They always shift it around. They keep you guessing where the good stuff is. And then they switch it out once you get comfortable and know it's there. Like Costco, we see what you're doing. Don't do that.
He's onto it.
He is.
We could have a whole nother episode about Costco-isms.
Round 2 Costco tips.
Stay tuned for part 2 Costco-isms.
I love it. So I'm like, let's go to the Costco in Plano. Like, love their stuff. They always have the great stuff. So we pull up, we roll in, and this lady walks right up to me and she goes, were you on? And I knew it. I mean, I'm psychic, so it's very helpful for most people. You don't even have to talk. I'm like, yes, I was. And she was like, thank you so much. That pre-softening the roots, blah, blah, blah. That gave me that was the best tip. I just learned so much. Thank you very much. And I was like,
and the thing is by default and I loved your message, but you helped her feel beautiful on the inside during your education, going against something that you believe in, but you gave her the power, you gave her the encouragement and the empowerment to feel beautiful on her own terms. So I celebrate you for that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think it just plays right into your message of being of service. And I think that always comes up in our coaching as well. Why are you doing it? Why did you get into this? Because you struggled, you learned information, you empowered yourself, and you can't help but want to share that. So don't let that self-sabotage or that imposter syndrome get in the way of the why. And that is always based in service and love.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the DJing thing, because my dad actually owned a DJ company, private parties, wedding receptions, stuff like that. And he also had that huge charisma factor. So I wonder if that does play. I mean, I've never seen.
Are you a Gemini by chance?
I'm not. I am a Cancer, so I'm very sensitive and emotional. So I'm very tied, especially with the Cancer, and the highly sensitive person makes me the perfect DJ.
Right.
He's always flowing.
Exactly. Always feeling the vibe.
When you're in front of, it doesn't matter how many people, when you're in front of people and you're DJing and you see them moving, What is that experience like for you? I mean, how does that feel on the inside? And also, how do you figure out what to do in a set? Like, how do you like? Are there parts where you ramp up and slow down? Like, how does that actually work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that I've been asked over the years. And I think it really depends on the set and the crowd as well. So I will say that I've done a variety of events, and I've done 2 weddings, and they were polar opposite experiences. So we could talk about that. So that's part 3. We'll go into wedding DJing on a third episode. But really what it is just paying attention. And it's that servant mentality, right? So it's a combination of being able to read a crowd, understand the vibe, understand what they're reacting to, and I will say that I'm also kind of a human jukebox of sorts. Like I was Shazam before Shazam was a thing, where I could hear a song or I'd know a couple notes, or somebody would, inevitably as a DJ, and they're usually drunk as hell, they would come up to the booth. Hey, do you know that song? The one that goes, did, that one? And you're like, oh yeah, that's such and such. Like, yeah, that one. And so I'm that guy. And so to be able to go into a set, and a lot of times, like when I would do a club set, I would go in saying, okay, I want to tell a story. I want to have a mood. I want to have a flow to this. You don't just go in and crash one song into the next haphazardly and hope for a good night, because your crowd's going to feel the same energy. But if you can bring them up, and usually it's the BPMs, which is the beats per minute, which is the tempo of the song, but it's also the tonality of the song. So it's, I start off very like pop remix friendly. People are hearing the songs that they realize they know the words, that they're singing along, they're feeling a vibe. And then I start kind of stacking it, where it's a pop remix, but then it's something a little bit more tech housey, and it's this, but then it's this, or it's something that they're not familiar with, but they're getting comfortable with the idea that I'm taking them on this journey. And that in of itself, and I just went through some old video footage too of some of the shows I've done, and I've played for 10 people on purpose, and I played for 10,000 people. Like it's the same story either way. You're there to help them on this journey. And again, kind of going back to the sentiment that we've been talking about, that servant mentality, I'm there to help them escape. I'm there to help them have a good time, leave whatever they have going on, whatever troubles or stresses. They can leave that at the door with the security guards, whatever. When they walk in my door and they hit my dance floor, like nothing else matters. I am there to take care of them.
I think that's such a beautiful philosophy, and I can only imagine it playing into the way that you approach your motivational speaking. So how did your years of DJing and holding space for crowds and helping take them from point A to point B, how did that play a part in your motivational speaking? And do you include music in it? I feel like we need some DJing like with the motivational, like a little combo of the both.
You may have already looked at my website in preparation for this, because I actually do that. So that's a great setup. So one, to the first part of the question, I leverage the DJ experience because the similarity there is that I understand that the crowd needs something. They're there for a reason. They're there to have a good time. They're there to kind of forget their worries. As a DJ, like that's my opportunity to help them do that. Crowds, when I speak as a motivational speaker, the same way. They're there to improve themselves. They're there to learn something. They're there to break a habit. They're there to feel empowered to make a change in their life. But at the same time, I've heard countless speakers in my life. And the one thing that I told myself when I got into it was that I want people to be entertained too. I want people to have fun, because I have sat through my fair share of like Ferris Bueller's history teacher's voice. And I'm like, no, that's not going to be me, because you can have the most fantastic content in the entire world. You can have the best message, but if you're not delivering it with some sort of entertainment or engagement, you're losing your audience. And studies show that actually people's recollection of what you say goes up by 42% when they're having fun. So adding in, and I do add in the musical element. So I've got one keynote that blends emotional intelligence and music, because music is something that we all share in common. I have yet, knock on wood, I have yet to meet somebody who says, yeah, I don't like music at all. I don't care what genre. I don't want to hear that noise. I just want to hear words and talking. That I don't want to hear music ever again. If I ever meet that person, I will hug them until they get mad at me. But it is the common thread that we all have. Now we have different tastes in genres, but we all have some similarities. Like I just spoke at a conference yesterday where I didn't even play the song, but I said out loud the words, Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. And you saw an entire room, and these were financial professionals, like, I mean, lovely people, but not a high energy industry. And you saw an entire room light up, because everybody starts hearing that opening line from that song in their heads, and they're all in a good mood, all of them. And, for the ones that didn't recognize it, or maybe were a little bit too young to remember it, I sang the first line of it and they all were like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And they all knew the song. So adding in the musical elements. And I've got a keynote that, I bring a sampler on stage and I play different samples of songs, and it just drives emotions left and right. I play everything from Adele to Limp Bizkit to Whitney Houston. Like, it's all over the place, but
You
it
did
helps
put the
people
heavy.
understand how to recognize their emotions. And it's a blast of a presentation.
That is so incredible. And it reminds me of the time back in 2012 when my mom had a paralyzing stroke. And one of my clients reached out and said, my 24-year-old brother just had a stroke. And the thing that helped him in his recovery was music. Well, my dad was a famous musician, and music is a very big, important piece of everyone in my family's life. We all play instruments. We're all very musical. And so when my mom was laying in the ICU bed, 104-degree temperature, couldn't move, zombie, I walked in and I played Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, which I always said I was going to play at her funeral because it's the song we danced to at my wedding. And it felt like her funeral, to be honest. So I was kind of just going in there like, well, we're just going to set the tone and see what happens. And when I turned on Bohemian Rhapsody, my mom, who couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything, had tears streaming down her face. And that's when I knew that her soul was still in there. And that's when I learned to have hope and not give up. And so for months, I would go to the hospital in her rehab center, and I would just play music, 70s classic rock, dad's music. Like, I would just play music. Eventually she started tapping a foot. Eventually she started humming. Eventually she sang the chorus. And eventually she looked at me like, holy shit, words just came out of my mouth. And it was all through singing. And when I think back to at that same time, I was going through my own spiritual awakening, learning to connect with higher intuition and psychic abilities. I learned about automatic writing, and I asked, I don't fuck around when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'm like, what am I here to do? Like, let's just get to the nut cutting. And I wrote, what am I here to do? And I channeled and I meditated and I let all that energy flow through. And I wrote 2 words: sing and teach. And I thought that was extremely fascinating because I wrote in the ugliest handwriting. So I know I wasn't just faking it, And earlier, before we hit record, we shared a beautiful story about you challenging yourself to go outside your comfort zone. And what you don't know is that I have this vision in the back of my head that one day I'm going to sing Hallelujah on a huge stage in front of everyone, because I perform it in my shower like every day. So I feel like you sharing that story was just a great reminder that we all have that even deeper dream that would push us outside our comfort zone. And that reminds me of the question I asked you while you were speaking on stage. What's that next curiosity for you? What is that thing that's pushing you outside your comfort zone? So I'm kind of curious to circle back, because I know we didn't get along.
Yeah, chat. I know. And I felt so bad I didn't answer that question directly. And I was so caught up in the energy of the moment. So I'm glad you asked the question, because I do want to properly address it. So there are a couple different things that I'm working into in 2024. Number one, I am writing 2 television shows, and one of them is music based. And it is to me, it's Netflix worthy. So if you're listening, like, call me, because this is going to be huge. But it's all based in musical storytelling. And so it's people that are sharing their emotions and memories about certain songs. And so that's kind of the premise of that song or that show. The other one is a more YouTube-based travel show that I will say that I got down the rabbit hole on YouTube one day, and there's a guy named Ennis Yelmiser who is a real estate agent, and he tours these like multi-million-dollar mansions, and they're on the market, and he kind of walks through and he's like, look at this and look at this and look at this. And so it's going to be a really cool show about different venues in different cities that people don't really travel to all that much. Kansas City, where I'm from, is one of those. So cities that are kind of flying under the radar that don't get a whole lot of attention. So writing 2 TV shows. The other one, and I know we talked before we hit record about my background, my picture with the glitter and my experience singing in front of 5,000 people, which ended horribly, but motivated me to want to find my own voice in singing, because I think I get so caught up when I sing of sounding exactly like the person that's singing. And in actuality, if you listen, like if you just go listen to some raw vocal tracks of some singers, some really famous singers, a lot of them are not that good classically. Like if you put them through some sort of like classic training for singers, they're not good, but you love them. And because they've got a passion behind their voice. So that being said, another fun fact about me, I'm a huge heavy metal fan. Yes, I'm an EDM house music DJ. I love house music. I love Motown. I love all kinds of different music. I'm not a big country fan, full disclosure, but I am a huge heavy metal fan. So I'm embarking on this journey of getting back into vocal lessons, because I took some back in the day. And I want to learn how to sing / scream like some of my favorite heavy metal singers. So that is kind of my comfort zone exit, or literally jumping outside and probably headbanging outside of my comfort zone to do something different. But those are kind of my two big things. But professionally, it's the TV shows. Personally, it's the singing. But this speaking business is kind of the main focus of everything. And there's a lot of discomfort that comes with running your own business and pushing your brand out 100%. And that's what I'm diving into.
Certainly. If you've never taken any classes from Roger Love, he's an amazing vocal coach that I think you would truly benefit from, for how to maintain your voice while speaking on stage for hours and hours upon time, as well as singing. He's awesome. We learned about him at an Experts Academy with Brendan Bouchard one time. We were lucky enough to get to witness that.
Yeah, he's the guy who does like anytime there's a celebrity learning how to sing in a movie, like the Walk the Line movie or like that. He's that guy. He's the guy everyone comes to. They train.
I know
with
who you're
him,
talking about now.
And then it's like, he's just a power, and he has this melody in his voice. I think you'll really appreciate this, because how you're talking about like the history teacher, just monotone the whole time, and he speaks with this melody in his voice that's really, I'll call it unique. Unique's probably the best word for it. He'll bring you up the scale and down the scale, and he's just saying normal things, and you're just going, what is he doing to my body? Like, he's having an effect on you that you can't push away. You can't block it, because the sound is causing your body and your brain to feel a certain way. You're like, whoa, he's taking me on a journey, and he's just talking normal stuff. It was really amazing. Really amazing. Roger Love.
I'm going to have to look him up.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was probably the one that spoke and built the pyramids, honestly.
So you when you go to speak, I want to know this question. When you're having an off night, when either maybe you're sick, or maybe just you've burned the candle at both ends, or big things are going on in your life, how do you stand up there and still deliver? Is there, or like, how do you realize this is not going well for me? I've got to turn this around. And like, what are you doing internally in your brain, and then what are you doing kind of externally?
Sure. No, it's a great question, because I think a lot of times people think, okay, well, every speaker is perfect. They're in the perfect mood. They're in the perfect health. They're in the perfect zone. I mean, yeah, you do everything you can to take as better care of yourself as possible, because obviously, I mean, now I get to say that my voice is it's my main business tool. It's up to me. So if my voice goes out, it's hard to be a motivational speaker when you can't talk. So one, I do a lot of I rest my voice when I need to, when I'm, it's hard for me to do that because I talk a ton. But it helps me. And when I say I talk a ton, I talk just socially a ton. I talk a lot. And so I have to tell myself okay, if I've got a presentation, I need to back off of it for a day, save my voice, be really cognizant about what I'm doing. I'm not going to say I go the route of humidifiers and tea. I'm not Mariah Carey, so I don't need orchids in my green room or anything, but it's really just the basic stuff of staying healthy. And at the end of the day, I can get through an hour presentation pretty solidly. Now, are there times where I've delivered a presentation where I maybe didn't get a good night's sleep? Yeah, absolutely. I had one about 3 weeks ago where the hotel that I stayed in, every time the thermostat kicked on, it almost sounded like a gunshot. It was loud. And so all night long, I was up and down. Now, was I in the best rest and the best frame of mind when I got up the next morning? Of course not. But I think anybody can do anything when you put your mind to it for a certain amount of time. So if you say, okay, for an hour, I'm going to ignore the fact that I'm tired, or I'm going to ignore the fact that I didn't get a good night's sleep. I'm going to ignore the fact that I'm probably standing up here with bags, I should check them on an airline that big. And that's just humility. That's just me saying, hey, I'm not perfect. And all of my presentations, I am very humble and I'm very direct about being vulnerable, because I can't get up there and say, well, I'm perfect and I sound perfect and my life has been perfect and I figured it all out, and have any validity whatsoever. And that's where I've really connected with audiences. So there have been times where I'll get up and say, hey, I'll be honest, I'll take a cup of coffee on stage and say, anybody else get a good night's sleep last night? Because if you could send me some of your energy, I would appreciate it. And here's why. And we've all been there. And it breaks down that whole, I think there's also this invisible wall between crowds and speakers sometimes that the crowds put up, thinking, oh, well, this person's on stage. They've got this, not to say celebrity status, but there's this different, they're holding you up on a little bit of a higher pedestal because literally you're up on a higher stage. But what I love doing is either getting down off the stage or just saying something very humanizing. Yeah, I slept like crap. I've chugged 7 cups of coffee before I walked up here. So if I talk 100 miles an hour, that's why. So being very vulnerable and being very connected to the audience and saying, yeah, I have these problems too. but here's how I battle them. And here's how I work through them. And here's what I do. And I'll take it to a mental fortitude conversation. You know, I didn't have the energy that I usually do before I walked up on stage here, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you my best for the next hour. And they love that. And from that point forward, you have a very genuine connection with your audience.
Oh, that's so important. You know, vulnerability builds trust in a way that nothing else, even great information, even having a really good voice, even having that presence. When people trust you, what you say after that matters suddenly because they're actually listening. That trust factor I found, and especially just, it's weird how so many people don't want to start a business because they don't think they're perfect.
Right.
Like what you're serving other people. Like you said, it's not even about you, but the fact that you think you have to be perfect to show up to help somebody.
You should have to be 10% better than whoever you attract to teach, you know? Like, you don't have to be like 10,000 times above their league.
And this may break some narcissists' hearts, but newsflash, nobody's perfect. Stop trying to be that. Chasing perfection is a facade. Like it's an absolute joke. It's like chasing your tail. You're never going to catch it. And if you did, you're not going to hold on to it for very long, but it's an impossible pursuit.
Or what if we just allowed ourselves to redefine that we already are perfect and we're allowing ourselves to continue to evolve like as is? I feel like when we deny that perfectionism or like obviously trying to live up to an invisible perfectionism, we realize that doesn't fucking work. But what if we just changed our perspective and realized that we were born perfect and that we're just unlearning the shit that has stopped us from being truly in alignment with that love and that peace, that joy. And it's just a practice every day to move more into alignment with what I think we were born. I truly believe that we were born perfect. Like we weren't born. Yeah, we come with like old karma that we got to work through. But I think at the core of it, like our heart is based in love, and it's just working through a lot of that pain that we've built up and those walls that we've built up. So
and I always say that I'm perfectly imperfect because I always think I'm a work in progress, as we all should be. We should never ever quit working on ourselves or trying to improve ourselves. So I think I love that. I think I agree with you in the sense that we are perfect as we are. And my imperfections make me perfect. There are things about me that are that I admit. I'm like, hey, look, these are not my strong suits, and that's okay. But my realization, my self-awareness in that sense makes me the most perfect version of me that I could possibly be.
100%. And that's what I'm talking about. It's the acceptance of shadow rather than denying it. Speaking about talking a lot, you sitting in that black or with the blue wall behind you speaks a lot to your throat chakra and why it will be so open and expressive. So it got me thinking about, well, if you're open and you can talk and express yourself, you can take that sacral chakra creative idea and bring it up through the heart, have the courage to get it out into the world. Where have you felt stuck in your journey? Where have you felt like, oh, I really struggle with this, or I really need to work on this? Like I suck at showing up on time. I know I got to work on it, but I probably won't. You know what I mean? Like,
but I think you were like a minute or two early to the recording. So, kudos to you for working on that.
Chris, he's like, babe, come on, it's time.
She was dragging you over to get there. Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
Look, I'm improving. I got an alarm clock.
we got to find the people that help support us get past our flaws. Right.
Right.
I will say a couple of different things. One, I, like everybody else, battle imposter syndrome. Now, is it as bad as it used to be? No. But, I had this insecurity for a long time. I was an insecure child for a lot of reasons, and I had to work through that. And a lot of times, growing up in my early 20s, I just kind of pushed it aside. I didn't want to deal with it. I just felt like, okay, if I just keep moving forward, it'll kind of fall away in the rearview mirror of my life. And in actuality, it was there all along. It was in the side view. I was just in that blind spot the entire time. And so the more things started progressing towards who I needed to be and who I was born to be, that got a little bit more up next to me, my imposter syndrome. And then it got in front of me and it slowed me down because I started wondering like, well, why do I deserve to be this person? Why do I deserve to be on stage? Why do I deserve to DJ to 10,000 people? Why do I deserve to be on TV? Like what people are not going to enjoy what I have to offer. And it was in that moment that, and it's still a work in progress, to be honest. I don't think it ever really goes away. But I think once you understand that your life and your perspective is yours, and I mentioned it earlier, there's comfort in that. And so I don't have to be Mel Robbins. I don't have to be these other people. I need to be who I am and follow my path. Because if I follow somebody else's path, I'm going to end up in a result that I don't want. I know what my goals are, and I know what my journey, I know where I want to end up with this when this is all said and done. And it's not anybody else's path. It's not anybody else's journey. So once I got rid of that thought, I'd say I went from probably like a 65%, 75% imposter syndrome problem to probably about a 10%. It's still going to be there, but I also realized when it starts creeping up how to get rid of it. Now, and that's from a spiritual, mental standpoint. And now from a tactical standpoint, I'm getting past the marriage of imposter syndrome and personal brand in the marketplace, because I love what I've figured out to this point. I love the messages that I bring through music. I love the impact on people that I have. When I get testimonials from people, they are flattering beyond comprehension because of what people are saying and sharing that they took away from my presentations. And I think I have seen so many people do social media, email marketing, those kinds of things horribly wrong, horribly pushy, horribly fake. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to play in that pool. And so I'm getting comfortable with the idea of saying, this is what my emails are going to look like. If you want them, great. If you don't, that's fine too. This is what my personal brand is going to be on social media. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm not here to please everybody. I always say I'm not going to be somebody's cup of tea, but I may be somebody's shot of bourbon. Like, let's go have fun and let's be who we are together. And I think once you understand that, and once you get comfortable in the sense that you can't make everybody happy, nor should you try, then a lot of the hindrances and a lot of the roadblocks start falling away or become easier to get past.
It's true. The idea of imposter syndrome almost seems silly when you think about, well, if we're trying to be someone else, then okay, that can apply. But when we're trying to be ourselves, there's no imposter. You are just you, and you're getting comfortable as your authentic self, not people pleasing or not wearing a mask. And if you're someone listening right now and you're like, shit, I struggle with imposter syndrome, I'm that 65%. We actually have done a podcast, Chris and I, and sharing the tips on how to overcome imposter syndrome. It's one of our most listened to podcasts, to be honest. And actually, when we were setting up ads with our ads team, we had this cute little guy from like Wisconsin. He's like 20 years old. And he's like, what's imposter syndrome? I was like, oh, well, that's good. You don't know. I'm like,
right.
That is like, to hear someone not ever hear that phrase. I mean, maybe they feel those feelings, but they've never had a phrase like, plug to it or peg to it.
Yeah. Sometimes for people to beat imposter syndrome, you always feel like the fake it till you make it kind of attitude. Do you have any like pre-game rituals that you do to kind of get you into the zone?
Like, you have to listen to a song that pumps you up.
Oh, yeah. I can't sit there and talk about music and be like, no, I just I read a book and then I, sip my tea and walk on stage. Boo. No, that's not me at all. And one, I will say, the fake it till you make it philosophy. There's another saying that I heard that in my mind replaces that, because I've always heard that if you prepare incorrectly, you're going to perform incorrectly. And so I think that as long as you're trying to learn and figure things out, like that's the path you should try. But I don't think anybody should ever falsify or fake anything in the process. Like, be exactly who you are. I mean, I was not a great public speaker when I started, but I learned, I got feedback, and I got better. So to anybody who is battling imposter syndrome and or trying to find their path, like, just be the flawed version, be the imperfect version, but continue to learn and develop. So to pregame rituals, I am a big fan. Like, I don't script my presentations. I know my slides. I know what's going to come up. I have a general outline and I know what the destination is. I know where I want to get people. I know what sentiment I want them to have. In between, it becomes a kind of an improv thing. So a lot of people say, well, I sit and I practice my presentation. I practice. I'm like, that would get me in such a mental headspace that is going to cause me to make mistakes. So I go up there very comfortable and very loose. I'll have a cup of coffee or whatever, especially when I do presentations in the morning. But I listen to, like, my favorite bands in the entire world are Seven Dust, Motionless in White, and Ice Nine Kills. And I've got like a workout playlist and a Spotify collection of playlists to die for. But I listen to Home by Seven Dust. That is my main like pregame song. And I love, there's a line that says, I'm home, leave it to me. And that one line means the world to me. And, they've been my favorite band for forever. But when I hear that, it's that confidence boost that I need. Like, this is my home. I'm comfortable up here. I love being on stage, not because it's an ego thing, but because I'm naturally comfortable there. You mentioned earlier, like, public speaking is a deathly fear for a lot of people. I'm like, put me on stage in front of a bunch of lights and cameras and microphones, and I'm great with it because I feel the natural desire to want to entertain and help. So when I listen to that line from Seven Dust, like, I am home and you can leave it to me to take care of you. Now, again, like, I listen to some hard, heavy stuff to get prepped for the presentation, but I also will say that Like my morning song, my morning wake up song is Baby I'm a Star by Prince. Like that song puts me in a good mood from the first note. So that is a mainstay in my day every single day.
It's amazing what music can do for us. I've been doing hypnosis for so many years with people, and I will tell you that one of the best ways to get people to regress back into earlier times is to ask them, what's a song that makes you think of, or what do you remember from this kind of thing? And that person is back there instantly. We don't have to do anything fancy. We don't need any crazy techniques. It's amazing what happens when people get together, because music, as you mentioned before, with the beats per minute, naturally puts you in a trance. I mean, that's why tribes for forever were doing big drum circles, and they had something that they were doing, pounding their feet on the ground. It doesn't matter. We've all collectively come together to appreciate this. And I'm finally getting into a space where I realize what the power of sound alone is. Just sound. You go out to the ocean, it does something to you. You listen to birds flying over, it does something to you. It is amazing what can, there's even studies that I've read that if you take plants and you put them in a room and you just play nature noises, the plants do better. It's like, I'm sorry, did you say
birds singing?
Yeah.
If you play birds singing around plants, they produce more pollen, they produce more flowers, they produce more because they believe they're of service to the bird.
There's so much that we do with our voice, with our thoughts that affect not only us, but everyone around you. Are there certain things that you say to yourself inside your head as you're up there or before you're going to do something that I know music does it for you too, but is there like a line that you give, like, I've got this? For me, before I go into a session, it's funny that it's the cocky way though. I like this sometimes because it gives you that big confidence, because when you go into a room with a person who you're going to help, who's been through trauma, who's looking to you for a solution, you have to feel confident. Otherwise, they're not going to believe that you can help them at all. And it's funny, in fact, because it's only them that helps themselves. But they don't know that yet. They haven't figured that out yet. And so I always go in there and say, I'm about to change your life. Like that's that one thing I say right before we get going. And it's like, that's what happens, because I feel like that's what's going to happen. So what is there something that you say to yourself to, like, I'm going to make this audience just feel things they've never felt before?
Yeah. The one thing I always tell myself is find that one person. There will be one person in the audience, no matter how big or small they are, that is ready for a change, that is ready to hear what I have to say. And that is the person that I try to reach out to, that I try to make eye contact with, that I keep trying to come back to and deliver my messages to. Sometimes I engage them directly. And so that is what I'm there to do. If I help one person in any presentation, if I change one mind, if I improve one life, I've done my job. Because that person could go on to do some great things, could go on to help countless other people. So if I can give them that power in that moment, that is all I need to do.
We call that finding the Joan. We did a presentation at a plant-based conference, and Joan was in the front row, and she was a teacher, and she raised her hand to everything. I felt like we were at church, just everything we said, yes, and so we always say, like, find the Joan. Let me fix this real quick. And then one thing that it made me think of is, knowing that if you could just change that one person or zero in on that one person, and having those sayings to ourselves, like finding the Joan. One of the phrases that we use is chi-chi's up. Do you have like that specific phrase you use that you tell yourself, like, I'm a fucking badass, or like, I got this, or like, what is that specific phrase you use for yourself?
I don't think there's a phrase necessarily, but there are songs that I will play in my head. There are beats that I'll hear that I'll go to, and I'll just kind of play them in my head. And there was one, and I'll get the words a little bit wrong. There's a band called The Siege, and I can't remember how I found them. But it's this two guy, and they're kind of hip hop, but electronica a little bit. And there's a song called Prime that I love. Like, their beats to me are some of all of their songs from the first beat that you hear, you're like, okay, I'm paying attention. And it's great pump up music. It's great workout music. I love it. They're huge on my list. And, he says, I don't need your endorsement. I don't need your enforcement, something else, but I'm in my prime. And I think that message alone, those lines alone remind me of the journey that I've gone on, because I have worked my ass off to get to where I'm at, not only just with my speaking, but personally. I have gone through hell and back several times, because evidently I couldn't get enough the first time I went to hell. But I have been down this path so many times, and I've worked so hard that I'm in a better place now than I've ever been. And candidly, I shouldn't be here, but I am, and I am in a better place. I am in my prime, and I've hit a groove, and I have hit a streak right now that I am doing what I am meant to do. And so when I hear that, or I hear like the line from Seven Dust where I'm home, leave it to me, like that gives me the confidence of presence of it's not what I've done and it's not what I'm going to do. It's where I'm at right now. And all the things that I've done to this point, all the lessons that I've learned, all the conversations that I've had, all the stories that I can tell during my presentations are because of where I'm at right now. And so that to me is where it all kind of brings it in. So I will say that I'm a random jukebox of short sound clips that I bring into my mind when I need that confidence boost.
You know, it's so powerful for us to start realizing that the journey that we are on is going to give us the nuts and bolts to help people in the future. And like when you start realizing that, you start actually honoring your journey instead of comparing yourself. Well, I'm not far along enough yet, or I haven't gotten this far yet. Like so many of us deal with that. It's wild to me. So I want to bring up something that I know you've talked about before, and you've mentioned health, you've mentioned your workout playlist. I want to talk about the role of fitness and how that has played into your personal journey, because I think I have a very similar journey. I've lost 100 pounds twice.
Oh, virtual high five.
Yes,
Bam.
sir. Yes, sir. And it is a journey. And then, you know,
Oh, it is.
Coming to terms with that, what that means, what you're letting go of, the safety, security, it is a big boy to unravel. So can you take us on your fitness journey? I mean, you're fit. I mean, we're looking at you.
We saw your marathon story at the presentation that we attended. So we know it's a big part of your life.
Blown away. Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah. You know, I will say that, so I started, I think it was third grade. My doctor diagnosed me with asthma. And so I'm an only child, and my parents were like, nope, you're not going outside ever again. Like, here is an Atari and some Big Macs, like, enjoy. And so I went down this path, and I would eat like the quantity of stuff that I would eat. And I've got two sons now that, you know, they're fine and they're healthy. But like, I look at them and I'm thinking, like, I sat and ate an entire bag of Cool Ranch Doritos while watching cartoons in like one sitting, which is not healthy at all. And that was, you know, and no disrespect to my parents, like there was not a whole lot of nutritional health or education back in those days. And I think, you know, from that point forward, from third grade on, I just continued to get bigger. And so by the end of high school, you know, I started playing football. So being big was my mentality. Like that was my identity. And I was I 240 when I graduated high school. And then I went on to play college football, and I got up to about 250. And then I quit playing football. And so that identity of needing to be bigger went away, but then I was lost. I'm like, okay, now what? And so and at this time, again, like I didn't have nutritional knowledge. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is that you were supposed to eat carbs and go lift heavy things. That's it. And so I kept doing that, but I didn't lift anymore because I didn't have to. And if you don't have to, I'm like, okay, I'd rather not. I'd just like to eat. And so I got up to about 260, and I was miserable. And I had my diet analyzed by my health professor, and he was like, yeah, we got to make some changes here. And really what it was me going on this 1.5 year journey of doing it right. Because I think so many times, especially now, I mean, this was back in, you know, the mid 90s, but now, especially, we're such a quick results society. We want instant gratification. We want something to happen overnight. We want to have the instant results. I took 1.5 years to lose 100 pounds. And it was me building the habits, learning how to eat right, doing more cooking, doing smarter shopping. All of those things put into it made me lose that weight. So, you know, like you, I lost 100 pounds and I kept it off. And now it's the 25th year of keeping this weight off. And so for me, it's just building that habit, which, you know, transcends into every conversation. You know, we're all a product of our habits and our behaviors. And so that to me it's been helpful from a physical standpoint. Health and fitness is a big part of my mental journey and my self-care. You know, I think it's, you know, you can go down the line of statistics and facts all day long and research about how physical activity helps us from a mental standpoint. But there are times where I'm like, you know what? Fuck the world. I got to go like throw on some heavy metal and ride my Peloton or go for a run or go do something because I'm just in a bad headspace. And, you know, I have a water weighted boxing bag. That was one of my favorite things in the entire world. I'd go down there and wail on that for 15 minutes and feel a hell of a lot better. So I think those elements, and especially if you find what you enjoy, because there are plenty of opportunities. I mean, look at pickleball. God knows that came out of nowhere and everybody in the world loves it now. So find something that you enjoy and invest in that. Invest the time and the effort in it, and you'll find the results will come. But it was a path of self-education, self-discipline, changing the habits, but also seeing the results. And I think that also sings to the fact that when you work hard enough for something and you start seeing the results, it becomes more worth it than trying to like pop a pill or drink a shake and be done with it. Like that to me, I wouldn't be able to enjoy it as much.
You're hitting on so many important things right here, and it is the long-term discipline that matters,
because that translates into how you show up to run your business or serve, or because when you build confidence and you see that that work and that effort pays off, then you know the work and effort of your creative pursuits will also pay off. And I find that the more I invest in my physical care, because my weight, losing 75 pounds when I first met Chris was a huge part of my journey and my confidence and all the things, so that I know that when I invest in my own physical well-being, my business reflects that. I will say, you know what, I'm not going to launch a new product or write another email or post another reel. I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out. I'll get home and have a new client being like, hey, I want to work with you. Like, where'd you come from? It's been all the investments that I did prior to set up the business, and then the energetics behind taking care of myself. So I love that you share how this is a huge part of your mental well-being and how it lays the foundation for everything, and how you show up as a father too.
Now, this is, I think this is a conversation that, I mean, maybe it's especially for guys. I can't speak for women, but especially for guys, you have to have some sort of physical outlet. I don't care if, I mean, it'd be cool if it was competitive, but if it's not, that's fine too. Most guys need some kind of competitive outlet as well. But for me, I'm normally a calm guy. I'm normally very calm. But if you saw me training, it's a different guy that comes out. Sometimes you gotta let the beast out. You gotta feed that beast. And sometimes that beast wants to go into the gym and lift heavy shit. And if you let the beast sit over in the corner too long, he breaks those shackles and wrecks your life. I mean, he really, and it's inside. And I need that sometimes. Sometimes you need that oomph, you need that in case you have to come swoop in and save somebody sometime or whatever the case. You want to have that physical fortitude to know I can handle whatever happens. And if you don't feed it, it will come eat you. But it's so beautiful when you do nurture it. I mean, you feel so capable. I find whenever I work with someone with confidence, if I work on someone with a confidence issue, the first thing I ask them is, what's your workout program? And the second they tell me they don't have one, which I already knew, that's why I asked them, I'm like, you got to start doing that. And they look at me like, I asked for confidence help. I'm like, no, I know. But if you're not building strength, what is your body? What are you really telling your body? I'm getting weaker. How are you going to be confident as you get weaker? And so it's so important for people to have a physical outlet, something. It literally, like you said, doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if you get in the pool, it doesn't matter. But something where you're challenging yourself, where you're breathing hard and your body's like, oh my God, I'm alive. I think so many people don't have the feeling of I'm alive anymore. It's like we just do the same tasks every day, and it's just
sit in our rolly chairs, and
it just becomes boring. And it feels so good to get out there and let that blood pump and feel the heart beating and be like, shit, I'm gassed. Like I don't even know if I can do another rep. It brings out something better in me. It makes me a better husband. It makes me better at literally everything.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And one thing that the three of us know based on our journeys, kind of going back to one quick thing that we mentioned earlier, is the fact that I think one of the things that I learned, and I'm sure you both learned, is that it's also okay to fall off the wagon because you understand how quickly you can get back on it. When you build those positive habits and you learn yourself, and it ties into what you're saying about workouts too. Like during my weight loss journey, of course, there are plenty of times that I binged on something that I shouldn't have binged on, or I drank too much wine or had way too much cheese that I bought at Costco, drop that in there. And, but I also understand like, okay, if I go do that, it's okay. I'm not a failure. I can go do another workout, or I can ride 45 minutes instead of 30 minutes, and it balances out, but I still enjoy my life. And to the point of what you're saying about letting the beast out, and I had that happen this morning, because I think there are times too where, like you mentioned it, like you just feel it. Like you feel it kind of knocking on the door, like it's got to get out, like it's a dog that needs to get out, right? You let the dog out, let it run around the yard. And so I am that person 100%. Even this morning was a perfect example that during my workouts, I look like a crazy person. And I work out at home, I work out in my basement, and I have like colored lights in the ceiling that I put on because I'm a big believer in chromotherapy. And I have my earbuds in and I'm listening to my workout playlist. And, there's a band that I saw open for Motionless and White called Alpha Wolf. And they have this song that is just It is a banger. And I was listening to it this morning. And so I would do a set and then I would put the weights down and I would air guitar and headbang like I was on freaking stage with them. But that was therapy for me. And it also makes it fun. And I would care less if the entire population of my neighborhood walked in my basement and saw me at the moment. I'm like, this is what I do. This is how I take care of myself. And if it's me singing in the car or me headbanging during my workout sets and playing my air bass, like I do not care. It's what I need for me.
Rich, we're going to need a video of the behind the scenes workout posted stat.
I will do that for y'all. I absolutely will. Because
you rocking out.
And my hope here is that there is a band or somebody that is looking for maybe a DJ to add to their band. That's like, oh my gosh, this guy's got pretty good stage presence in his basement. We ought to get him signed on the tour. Like, let's make that happen. But absolutely, I will do that.
Between that, Costco, and Netflix, we better pick up a deal after this podcast.
I know, right? This podcast brought to you by Netflix, Costco, and every heavy metal band that needs to sign me.
100%.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. So before we wrap up, I'm curious, you have a lot of books behind you. What are the top, everyone can never answer, like, what's your favorite book? So what are the top 2 or 3 books that have been the most impactful and influential in your life?
Yeah, by far, The 4 Agreements is the number one. I know that's one that is very consistent in the circles that we run in, and a lot of people have read that book. I think it was transformative for me at the time that I read it. It's a must read in my mind. The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. It's more marketing based, but it's also based on the idea of experience and how you can create moments through experiential things. It's a phenomenal read. It's one of those books that I read, and every time I read something, I would mark it and I would dog ear the page and I'd go back and read it. It is literally filled with those. Laura Gassner Otting, who's a good friend of mine, her books are phenomenal as well. She's got one called Wonder Hell and Limitless. That are phenomenal books. And then the last one, and I want to make sure I get it right, is The How by Ursa Daly Ward, who's another, I've become friends with her too. I loved her authorship, loved the way she writes. And I reached out to her and struck up a conversation, and now we're pals. But The How by Ursa Daly Ward is fantastic.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And also thank you for that quick little tip that you just slid in there. All you have to do is reach out and be kind. There's 2 simple 100%. Tips that's 2 simple tips that he gave you on today's podcast. You want to make an impact and influence others. Don't be a dick and just start the conversation. It's very simple. So we always love to ask, what does living an elevated life mean to you?
I think we've talked about stepping outside of our comfort zone, but I feel like if you look at your comfort zone as a vertical stretch, so a lot of us play here, or maybe a little bit lower because it's safer. We're out of the limelight, we're out of the spotlight. A lot of us play in this space where it's predictable and it's safe and it's comfortable and it's great. Elevated life is saying, no, there is a different level of happiness up here. It's a matter of me climbing this ladder, climbing through the hole in the ceiling and experiencing the sunshine. I feel like it's almost like you climb out of the top floor of a building onto the roof and you have a different view. The sun feels different. The weather feels different. Everything is better. And so I feel like if we take ourselves to that next level and we learn how to enjoy that bigger, better view of life, that is what elevated life is to me, where you're really seizing the opportunities because we all have, we have this story to write for ourselves. And so I always loved, I think it was the Navy or the Army or whatever, had a commercial that I was not even paying attention one time, but the last line struck me and it said, if your life was a book, would anybody want to read it? And to me, if you don't elevate your life, your book is going to be one that just collects dust in the library.
Damn.
Mic drop. Well, with that wisdom, where can our elevators come and find you and soak up more of this juicy goodness?
Absolutely. Come find me at richbracken.com. I also want to know what your favorite Costco treat is at the sample day on Saturdays. Drop a mention, send me a note. But yeah, richbracken.com's got everything that you could possibly need: videos, podcasts, blogs, the whole 9 yards. And
that's also, your name is how people can find your Spotify list. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. You can find my Spotify list. It's also linked on the website as well. So you can find it through there. I think outside of country, I have a playlist for every mood, every genre, everything you need. So come find me on Spotify as well.
Oh my gosh, you guys definitely go soak up his magic. Thank you so much for being a very special part of today's conversation. And we cannot wait to share this with our elevators. And we'd love to know everyone's takeaway. So shoot us a DM. And until next week, we'll catch you later.
Peace.